Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at this really neat visual you shared with us, the one that maps out getting fluent in English.
Yeah, it's quite clear.
But the interesting thing, I think, is how this applies more broadly. It's not just language, right? It feels like a blueprint for mastering, well, almost any complex skill if you look closely.
Absolutely. It really boils down a pretty complex journey into steps that feel actionable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you connect that to how we generally learn things, its value becomes even clearer. It sort of demystifies the whole process.
Okay, so let's dive in. The first little plant pot, the starting point, is labeled Start with Basics, and it just shows A and A. Simple, right?
Well, yes and no. The visual is simple, but the basics for language go a bit deeper than just the alphabet.
Right. Like what?
It's things like mastering the actual sounds, the phonemes that make English distinct, those subtle differences like the versus D, and grasping the most common grammar patterns. Get those down, and you unlock a surprising amount of everyday communication. It's about building a solid foundation for both understanding and speaking.
Makes sense. Without that, everything else is kind of shaky.
Exactly.
So once you've got those roots, the next step shown is build vocabulary with an ABC block icon.
Yeah, vocabulary.
Lots of people think this just means memorizing word lists, but there's more to it for actual fluency, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. It's less about just passively recognizing words and more about active vocabulary words you can actually use.
Use correctly.
Yes, and understanding collocations. That's words that naturally sound right together, like saying strong coffee instead of, I don't know, powerful coffee.
And powerful coffee sounds a bit odd.
It does. It's that naturalness that makes you sound fluent. So quality and usability, not just sheer quantity.
Okay, this next bit I found really interesting. The visual separates improve listening
If with a headphones icon, yeah.
and practice speaking, which has the megaphone. They're often just lumped together as conversation practice.
That's a really key distinction. They're linked, obviously,
Mhm.
but they're different skills. Listening isn't passive.
How so?
Well, active listening means you're constantly predicting, guessing, meaning from context, trying to catch the key info. It's like hypothesis testing in your head
Okay.
and speaking. That forces your brain to actually retrieve language and, produce it under pressure. It quickly shows you what you don't quite grasp yet.
That makes sense. A lot of learners probably hit a wall there if they don't actively work on both.
Precisely. They're separate, but they definitely reinforce each other.
Then comes practice writing with the pen and paper. How's this different from just practicing speaking?
Writing gives you space. It's more deliberate. You can slow down, really think about grammar, try out more complex sentences, choose your words carefully.
Without the pressure of a real-time conversation.
Exactly. It lets you solidify structures and correct your own mistakes.
Yeah.
That careful practice then feeds back into making your speaking smoother and more accurate over time.
Okay. Next up, read every day. A nice leafy plant there. What's the benefit beyond just picking up new words?
Reading is fantastic for what linguists call comprehensible input.
Yeah.
You just absorb so much language naturally.
Like grammar and phrasing.
Yeah, grammar patterns, natural ways of saying things, even cultural context sometimes. It builds your implicit knowledge, that gut feeling for what sounds right in English.
So it makes you sound more natural, not just correct.
That's a great way to put it.
And finally, the biggest plant, the goal, I suppose. Be consistent. It's got the clock and calendar icon. This seems less like a step and more like, well, everything else.
It is everything else in a way. Consistency is the absolute key. It's the thread that ties all the other practices together.
So it's not just one more thing to do.
No, it's the overarching principle. Think about exercising.
Yeah.
You can have the perfect plan, but if you only do it sporadically, nothing much happens.
Right.
Language is the same. It's the daily, or at least regular, repetition and practice across all those areas, listening, speaking, reading, writing, vocab, that builds real, lasting fluency. It makes the learning stick. Without consistency, those other plants just won't grow properly.
So looking at this visual, fluency isn't some magic leap. It's really just putting one foot in front of the other consistently through these different skill areas.
Exactly. It breaks it down into manageable parts.
It makes the whole process feel much less daunting, actually.
It really does. And, this visual isn't just about English. It suggests that any deep skill, any real mastery, comes from that same process. Nurturing the basics, practicing different facets, and above all, being consistent, one deliberate step at a time. So maybe the question for you listening is, what's one small, consistent step you could take today towards any skill you want to build?